What do you get from a pampered cow?
What?
Spoiled milk.
Oh, God.
Hungry Squared, bringing you the best food talk anywhere.
Welcome to the Hungry Squared podcast where the brain and belly meet. I'm Sharon from the Wasatch Cooking Guide.
And I'm Winter from Chef vs. Baker. This week, we actually have two special guests, Sharon.
It's a party.
It's a party. They're here actually right now. We're talking to two registered dietitians, Marysa Cardwell and Claudia Wilson. We are so grateful that you guys are here with us today.
We are grateful. It is a party.
Thanks for having us.
You should see the four of us.
Yeah.
Just picture this little party in your mind.
It's going to be great. Let's talk about it. Hey, you guys. How are you doing? So I want to set the scene here. We're sitting in Claudia's kitchen right now. And
it's a beautiful kitchen.
It's a beautiful kitchen.
It's your dream kitchen.
Yeah. Just picture
Perfect
that.
for entertaining. And we're sitting around having fun.
So how are you guys doing today?
Fabulous.
Fabulous. Great.
Happy to be here.
Claudia?
Excited. So excited. This is my first one.
Awesome.
It's my first podcast.
Yay. Sharon, how have you been doing?
Great.
Yeah. It's been a good week. It's been it's been beautiful in Utah, I want to say.
Gorgeous.
Nice fall weather.
Yeah, we cannot complain at all. So, well, should we just jump into it?
Let's.
Yes. Let's do it.
Well, then let's dig into the kitchen drawer first.
Clang, clang.
We still need some sort of.
We need a drop there.
We're going to work on that. Like I said, we have some guests on, and we're going to be doing an Ask-a-Dietician segment in just a little bit as our main topic, but I really wanted to see if they had anything that they would recommend. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Marysa Cardwell. Once again, we've had her on the podcast before. She has done an episode before on, I believe it was recommended daily allowances, recommend dietary allowances. And so, and I'll put a link in the show notes so you can listen to that one. But Marysa is going to do our dig into the kitchen drawer. Tell us what you want to talk about. What favorite tool do you have in the kitchen?
Okay, so the tool I was thinking I use a lot lately is the strawberry huller. Did I say it right? Huller.
The strawberry huller.
It's shaped almost like a little strawberry, and you press down on it and little claws come out, and you put it over the stem of the strawberry, and it pops the stem out without wasting too much of the strawberry. So as a busy mother whose kids love strawberries, I use this huller quite a bit.
Nice.
And it's super wonderful. I try not to clutter up my kitchen with a lot of gadgets, but this one's worth having for sure.
Well, I was going to say they're kind
tiny.
of small, aren't
Yeah,
they?
they're super cute.
They're super cute.
Well, bonus.
And you waste as little of the strawberry as possible. So in terms of food waste, it's a good tool.
That is great. What brand do you like?
I have the OXO
Oh,
brand.
the OXO brand.
Yeah. So it's very inexpensive. I think I just got it off of Amazon.
Sweet.
And I love it.
And you love it. So it works for you because first of all, your kids eat that way. They love strawberries, and also you are busy. So it probably helps considerably.
Time saver.
Yes.
Awesome. What's your rating?
I would say a 5. It really is one of my favorite
5
kitchen
out of
tools.
5.
Yes.
Okay. It doesn't take up much space. It's quick. Decreases food waste. We like that. That's good. Okay. I will
Is
put
the
a link in
dishwasher safe?
Yes. I throw it in the dishwasher all the time.
Win.
I know. It's all around. It's awesome. Okay. I'm going to put a link in the show notes so you can look it up yourselves, but a strawberry huller. I know that sounds...
It's hard to say.
Holding something that's like kind of hollowing things.
It scoops out the stem, basically.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it so much.
And now for the main course.
Okay, let's get down to our topic at hand. Our main topic. We are here with Claudia Wilson and Marysa Cardwell. They are both MS RDNs, so they have Masters of Science in Nutrition, and they are registered dietitian nutritionists. These are the people that your health insurance will pay for a visit with a dietitian at like a medical clinic or a hospital or something like that. This is the same certification.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
And we're excited, especially since they actually just published a book, and they have their own company, All of Nutrition, and Claudia actually published this book, 1-2 Punch. And so we're super excited to talk about it, to talk a little bit about, I like the little tagline that you have on here that says when to eat, what to eat, and how to keep going, because let's be honest, everybody tells us what to eat and when to eat, but I particularly am excited to talk about the how to keep going part because I kind of stink at that.
Yes.
So Claudia, tell us what inspired this book. Why did you do this? There's a lot of stuff out there already, right?
There's so much. Yes. I felt something was missing in the industry. So many of your listeners know about mindful eating and intuitive eating, and Marysa and I in our practice as dietitians really help clients improve their relationship with food and eating behaviors. And to do that, many dietitians use intuitive eating, but sometimes for someone who has been meticulously tracking their calories, counting their calories, following a diet, following macros, logging their activity, things like that, going from that straight to, well, just eat intuitively, eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, eat whatever you want. That can seem really like free falling and very unsettling, very scary. And so there's a bridge I felt that was needed, and 1-2 punch is the bridge. So if you have been on every diet known to man and have not been able to reach your personal goals, whatever they are, then think, of course, 1-2 punch is for you. It teaches you when to eat, which is what we call the burn section of the book. And that is to eat when you're hungry. And it gives you lots of pointers and graphs and pictures and colors in order to figure that out, because even that's hard. You know,
Yes.
I don't really know when I'm hungry or why I'm eating. Why is very particular.
Yeah.
Yes. And so then what to eat, I think there's so much information out there about what to eat. So much.
It's too much sometimes. I feel like I'm super overwhelmed.
Yes. It's cumbersome. It's confusing. It's difficult. Everyone has a different idea. And this is really the book really lets people be autonomous in their choices of what to eat, but it's very scientific backed. So it's got 87 references in the book.
The bibliography is great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right? Right? Marissa.
Yes, research assistant.
Part of that.
It's wonderful because it's very complete. So if it's not just abbreviated like a lot of people do for their reference notes and stuff at the back of their books, it's very complete. So if you wanted to actually go and Google some of these resources or go to the library or something, you could probably find them.
They would be there.
Yeah.
PubMed.
So what you can't see is Marissa and I are smiling, nodding at each other. Anyway, so yes, it's what to eat. It lets you choose what to eat, but it also tells you the science behind what's going to happen if you eat just a carb by itself. What's going to happen if you eat just a protein by itself? What's going to happen in an ideal world if you combine that protein and carbohydrate? That's the what to eat, but it gives you a lot of choices. And it gives you parameters without counting, tracking, weighing, which is why it's called 1-2 punch, because we use the size of your fist.
That is awesome. I just want to point out one thing that I really, really like is that you talk about having parameters, which is great.
Yes.
Because from somebody coming off of diets and being very concerned about what I can eat and what I can't eat.
Yes.
It's nice having parameters, but it sounds like there's a little bit of ability to choose still within those parameters.
I love that you left it wide open.
There's a lot of wiggle room.
Oh, it's wide open. There's a lot of wiggle room. In the book, I actually say choices for days.
And you actually say you don't have to eat a vegetable if you don't want to.
Whoa.
Yes, I do, which I'm prepared for the haters.
I know, I was going to say.
I'm prepared. I'm prepared for the controversy. But yes, there's so much room, and that can also be explained as there's so much permission. And so the burn part is eat when you're hungry. The balance part is balance your protein and carb. The become section of the book is practicing. And it's in that practice section that we really talk about permission.
That was my favorite discussion. That was my favorite part of the book. And I'll be really honest, I got a little emotional.
Oh, Sharon.
Yeah. So I love this book. You guys, I read it this weekend and then I read it again yesterday. And I really love this book. But And I've read a lot of diet books and things like that. And I've gained weight over the last like decade of my life, and it just kind of keeps going. And I'm like, but this is a very straightforward format. And I don't think of it as like a diet or even like a lifestyle change as much as you go into depth about how it's more of a mindset.
Yes. So I might get a little emotional because what Sharon just said to me is so meaningful. That is the reason I wrote the book. And I'm hearing from lots of readers that say, this changed my mindset. You talk about a mindset. This changed completely. Where was this book 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Where was it in my teenage years? Which is, I mean, that's the cat's meow. That's the holy grail. That's everything I want, is to have it so meaningful to people.
The interesting part I find is that it really doesn't go against a lot of the other things that you read out there. Like, it doesn't necessarily go against your elimination diet that you try at the beginning of every year, like a Whole30. It doesn't really go against being vegan or paleo. It fits in with all of those things if that's kind of
if that's the choice you want to make.
Yeah,
right.
If those are the choices
right.
that you want to make. It works for athletes as well as non-active people. Like, it works for the gamut, whole spectrum.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I want to address. I'm so glad you brought that up, because you can, if you would like to follow Whole30, you can follow Whole30 and still learn about your hunger and balancing your protein and carbohydrate,
Right.
and then practicing. You can do paleo. You can be vegan. There's so many diets that if you want to follow those specific food groups or include those specific food groups, you can absolutely do it with 1-2 punch. But the other thing that I want to address is that as we were nearing completion and nearing publication, a lot of people who were helping with marketing and giving me suggestions kept asking, who's your audience? Who's your audience? Who's your audience? And you have to narrow it down, because I kept saying, it's for everyone.
It is.
It's for everyone. It's for athletes. It's for a toddler who's 2. It's someone who's 4. It's someone who's 98. It's someone who's my age, postmenopausal. I just made a face because it's a new space for me.
It's for everyone, though.
It's for everyone.
It's for everyone.
Yeah.
So, Claudia, can we really quickly talk about the burn? Like, can we talk about what is when you say burn, what does that mean? I that's one of the things that I was like, ooh, I want to burn some.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to eat it. I want to burn the brownies that we talked about earlier. What does burn mean?
So burn is eating when you're hungry. That's a very simplistic definition. Mm-hmm. But when you eat, when you're hungry, when your body is signaling that you need fuel, we call it, your body is at the most opportune space to burn those calories.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Just at the core, yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah. So when you eat when you're hungry, your body will burn those calories. And we use an illustration, an analogy in the book of likening your stomach to an incinerator. When you put food in, regardless of the food that you put in, when the incinerator door is open, it's going to be burned. When you put food into your incinerator, when the door is closed, right? Then
when you're not hungry.
When you're not hungry, thank you for that clarification, then it's sitting on a closed door. And when it's just sitting there because it's not an opportune time to be burned, you have more potential to store it. And your body's capacity for storage is fat storage.
Which it wants to do, right?
Mm-hmm. Which it wants
very
to
good
do.
at doing.
I'm not saying that it's absolutely wrong or bad or any of those things to eat when you're not hungry. But what I'm hoping this book helps people with is, if you're going to make that choice, remember, choices for days. If you're going to make that choice of eating when you're not hungry, I want you to be mindful that you're doing it and intentional, and then also understand the science behind what's going to happen if you do that.
Easy as that. You're not telling me that I can't eat when the door is closed, but just be aware of what I'm doing.
I want you to be aware of what you're doing and what might happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And is that supporting your goals?
Okay. So just to
make an informed decision.
Yeah.
Yes,
basically.
exactly.
Okay. And then you mentioned this already, and I want to talk a little bit more about this because Marysa's also talked about this in the past. The balance and kind of the 1-2 punch part, your fist size. Can we go over that? Because I think this would just be a nice little just quick discussion, because if they don't get the book right away, they can take away something right now about what the balance part is.
Absolutely. The balance part is when you're hungry, that's the first foundational principle. You want to balance what goes into the incinerator, and it's best to balance the protein and carbs. And the parameters that we talked about, use your fist as your guide. It's the volume of your personal fist. So Marysa's children have very small fists, but they each have a different size fist.
Yeah, exactly.
Cute little fists.
Yeah, they are.
Cute little fist, darling. But they need different amounts of protein and different amount of carbohydrates. I'm a fairly small boned person, and so I only need the volume of my fist. My husband, for instance, needs the volume of his fist. My 6 foot tall son needs the volume of his fist. So you want to choose a volume of your fist, a fist-sized portion of carbohydrate, and a fist-sized portion of protein when you're hungry. And I like to say, and I say this in the book, the fist of protein, sure, can be a lovely piece of grilled salmon, and the fist of carb can be brown rice pilaf. But remember the permission piece that we just talked about. That might not be what you want. To you, that might feel like a diet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the fist of protein can also be a hot dog, and the fist of carbohydrate could be a cupcake.
Whoa. What?
I know.
Yep.
I know.
What?
Yep.
What?
Yes. And this is where, we run into some controversy. Yes, if you're eating when you're hungry, remember that your body is going to burn that, and then you're still balancing with that hot dog. However healthy or unhealthy you think it is, you're still balancing your protein and the carbohydrate. And remember too, and we get into this, Sharon mentioned the become part. We get into this in the become section of the book. If you really want a cupcake, are you going to be sensually satisfied with the brown rice pilaf? No.
Yeah, I love how you talk about the sensual satisfaction of food and how that's still important. It's not just important to lose weight or eat in a healthy way. And that's why you explain you don't necessarily have to eat vegetables.
There are some people who really hate vegetables.
Right, yes. And I've met a couple.
And
you
have a couple in your life.
explained how to eat if you're not eating vegetables.
But they believe that the only way to meet their goals, and so many people believe that the only way to be at a healthy weight for them, a weight that they want to be, is to follow a diet and to count calories and to suffer. I'll use the word suffer and to suffer and go without and restrict, and then, feel like they're
being deprived.
Yes.
Which leads to binging or overloading on sweets.
Yeah,
or
swinging the opposite direction completely, and then of a diet or eating something good.
When you are very restrictive, you're pulling the pendulum to one side. When you pull the pendulum to one side and you let go, it's going to go all the way to the other side. Yes.
Like a swing.
Yes.
It really will be. I like the idea of that sensual, kind of tapping into enjoying your food, because you don't hear that with diets.
Yes. And
ever.
Right. I can solve, and this is for those of you that have the book or read it, you'll recognize that I've already said this. I can solve anyone's hunger with a stale piece of bread and boiled meat. We can solve the hunger. We can absolutely solve that. Yeah. But they will still be, for you movie buffs out there, you will still be left wanting. What movie is that from? You will still be left wanting.
A Knight's Tale.
Yes. Ding, 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 ding.
Oh,
you will still be left wanting and wanting something to satisfy that sensual need.
When I tell people all the time, in order for you to do something long term, your food needs to taste good. Yes. Otherwise, how are you going to stick to this long term?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Food is so enjoyable. Okay, we're all foodies here, right? We love food. And so to say that, like you said, salmon and rice pilaf, that is great, fine. But it's like if you have to do that all the time, it's just going to get boring. Mm-hmm. And maybe you just don't like salmon, which I just found out that Claudia does not like salmon. I'm calling you out right now.
Yeah, she's totally calling me out. I don't think I'm turning red. I think I can take the heat. But we were talking before this started that I'm always very surprised at people's reactions when they find out that I'm a dietitian, but then somehow that I also don't like salmon, and they're horrified that because I'm a dietitian by training, I don't have the option of my own personal likes and dislikes. And in full disclosure, I also don't like dark chocolate.
Oh, it's out there now, you guys.
See, now Sharon is having a reaction to that.
Okay.
I do want to point out.
I love milk chocolate, though. Just saying.
Just putting it out there. I mean, well, chocolate, period.
Exactly.
Is a good thing, right? So we can bond on the chocolate thing. I like to, just your entire approach, Claudia, it strikes me as that once again, you're not depriving people of anything. You can be your own person. You don't have to follow what some random author of a diet or somebody that is basically telling you what to eat and what you should like.
Yes.
Right? In a sense?
Yes.
So thank you.
And who you should be and what you should think and blah, blah, blah.
It kind of, diets are that way sometimes. A lot of times.
Yes. I wish your listeners could see your faces because it's so entertaining. And by that, I mean, it's so enjoyable. I wish everyone could see the expressions on your faces.
Someday we'll
It's so
film,
nice to be with you.
But we have faces for podcasting. What can we say?
Stop.
Just kidding.
We pull a lot of faces.
So I really loved the money shot of the cookie dough in the permission section.
Yes.
Was that purposeful?
Oh, absolutely.
It was genius.
Absolutely. There are some stunning pictures in this book.
There really are.
There are.
It's lovely. And you guys, it's a quick read.
Super quick read.
Yeah.
Most people, like Sharon said, she read it over the weekend. Mm-hmm. And then again last night. Most people read it in one night. It is meant to be like you're thumbing through a very beautiful cookbook.
Yeah. Do you know who Danielle Laporte is?
No.
So she is kind of like this inspirational guru, and she's written a few books. One's called, I think her most famous one's The Desire Map. And she talks about goal setting with vision and things like that. But this book's really incredible, and a lot of people, follow her. But this book kind of the layout of it kind of reminded me of that. It's simple without being simplistic. It's just very easy to read and thumb through, and there's information like on every page type of a thing, and appropriate pauses
resource
and
afterwards.
Yes.
So you might read through it quickly, but it's a wonderful book to have to go back
jump back
refer to all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The charts are wonderful, the color photos and everything like that. It's beautiful.
Thank you. This concept I've been teaching this concept in my clinic and now in our clinic. Marysa teaches this concept for others. We've been doing this for about 9 or 10 years. The concept for the book has been in the making for 2 years. But the reason it took so long, the 2 years, is the layout. How do I put the idea, everything that we're talking about right now on this podcast, how do we put that in a graph? How do we put it in text? How do we put it that someone can glance about it and use it, like Marysa said, as a resource?
It's super nice. I wish you guys could see. I'll put it out there that we're going to put it on the show notes so that you guys can see where to get it. We'll talk about where to get the book and everything later.
And stay tuned. We may or may not be doing a giveaway.
Yes. We'll talk about that. And we can cut that part out.
You can win your own.
Yeah.
Yes. So in talking about the burn, balance, become, the 3 principles of the book, how long does it take your average client to feel comfortable with the 1-2 punch method in practice? Just kind of living it and going forward with it.
I think, and I know a lot of people, I used to teach college, and most college students hated the answer, well, it depends.
Yeah.
They wanted a finite answer, but it does absolutely depend. And Marysa, you can chime in because we both have a lot of experience working with clients. I think it depends on how long the person has been stuck following a particular regimen. Right?
Okay.
So if let's say they're 45 and they have been following a specific regimen since childhood, let's say since age 5, given
like
to
a
them by
food
their
regimen in particular?
Yeah, a particular regimen. Like, let's say perhaps their parents put them on a diet. And so they dieted as a child, as a teenager, or they chose to as a teenager. And now they're in our office at the age of 45 and they've been constantly trying to follow a diet and never really understood what it felt like to be hungry. That is going to take some time, and that's okay. What I usually say to them is, let's try this. Let's experiment with it. Let's practice this for 24 hours, because for 24 hours,
you could do anything.
You can do
probably.
anything,
Yeah.
pretty
You
much.
can.
You know, I want you to wait, and this is usually very scary for people. I want you to wait until you get hungry.
What are the responses you get?
They look at me with wide eyes. Sometimes they say, I don't know what it feels like to be hungry. I don't know if I know what it feels like to be hungry. I don't like that feeling, and so I try to avoid it. But usually when I bring up the 24 hours, so it's very scary and daunting to do that, which is why intuitive eating is so scary. But when I bring up the 24 hours, they say, okay, I can do it for 24 hours. And then I say, text me, because they're not going to come in until
week or something.
the next week. But I'm still amazed. Even though I've been practicing for over 20 years, it's hard to amaze me, but I'm still amazed when I ask people, okay, from the time you got up this morning, walk me through your day. And they'll say, I got up at 7 and I ate breakfast at 7:30. Well, why did you eat then? And how did you decide what to have? Well, I ate because it's breakfast time and it's the most important meal of the day. And then I'm also very surprised that they've been doing that their entire life. And for some people, they've never eaten for hunger, ever.
Wow.
Ever. They've always eaten because it's breakfast time, it's lunchtime. Well, I come home from work and I meet my family and it's dinner time, and so I just eat.
But it's so funny because everybody talks about 3 square meals a day. I mean,
yes,
it's just ingrained in the culture, I think. I mean, that's the way America is in the United States. We've been brought up to eat, right? I mean, I feel like that's just 3 square meals a day.
And you clean your plate.
Yeah, that's what I did when I was a kid.
Yep.
And that's what my parents told me to do. So, so I can see that being very difficult to break out of that mold of not eating breakfast in the morning until you're hungry. Like I think that's a big change for a lot of people to make.
Yes. And sometimes we start with just one meal. I want you to get up and I don't want you to eat until you're hungry. And sometimes Sharon's asking about the reaction. Sometimes they'll say, well, what if I'm not hungry before I go to work or before I go to school? And I say, that's okay. We're going to pack something. You're going to take it with you. You're going to eat at the office. You're going to eat when you get to school. And it's a concept that maybe they haven't thought of, that they could actually wait.
So we have a lot of people come in, and because they've been dieting for years, by the time they come to us, they're terrified of food.
Oh.
And terrified of being hungry.
And terrified of being hungry, but also terrified of what to eat when they are hungry. I mean, the whole just eating and everything surrounding it is really scary for them. So by the time, a lot of times when they come to see us, they just don't know what to do, and they don't know how to trust their body and relearn those hunger fullness cues. And so depending on where they are in that process, it could take longer time if they're absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
You guys, this is going to sound I'm like, oh my gosh, I think for breakfast anyway, I always eat breakfast because I've been told to eat breakfast. I need to rethink this. Okay, I'm having some realizations here.
I'm so glad, but we're touching on why I wrote the book, because we teach this in our office, and I wanted two things. I wanted to reach a larger audience because I think, and we're going to talk about this probably later, I think access to dietitians can be expensive.
Yeah.
We're highly trained, and so we are expensive. And so I wanted to reach a larger audience that would have access to this information. And because it's so simple, you shouldn't need to come to a dietitian to learn this.
But we do.
Right.
And that's why we have you on your podcast. And so it's good. Okay, so Sharon touched on this, and you guys have mentioned this before, but the becoming part, the practicing part, so it takes longer for some people. Some people it can kind of pick up on it. But what do you tell your clients, or what do you tell us in the book how to practice this part? How do we do this part? Because sometimes people are like, I just need to see results right away. What do you tell them to get through this part where you may stumble and you may mess up, or you may swing the other direction, or you may think that, oh, great, I've screwed up, so what's the use of following through?
Yeah. I use analogies. Any of my clients will tell you, oh my gosh, she has an analogy for everything. Absolutely everything. I use them a lot in the book. But one of the analogies I use is if you're on a hike and you stumble on a rock and fall and maybe even scrape your knee a little bit, do you say, that's it, I'm out of here, I'm going back down the mountain, I am not going to go to my destination?
No, you want to see the lake. You want to see the summit.
Yeah.
You want to reach the top. You want to see the sunrise or the sunset or something like that. You don't throw it all away because of a scrape. Now, I'm assuming, please don't attack me, I'm assuming that it's a small scrape, that it doesn't require stitches, things like that. It's just a small scrape. You stumbled. That's what it means. You stumbled, and you get back up, you stand up, and you continue, you brush yourself off, and you continue on the hike. I am known, and it's in the book, for saying there's no wagon to fall off of in the 1-2 punch.
You don't have a screw it moment ever.
Yeah.
You shouldn't.
I mean, you might, but when you have those moments, I recommend that, okay, this doesn't feel good. You overate. You ate for reasons that you didn't want to. You weren't eating to fuel. It wasn't intentional. All those reasons. You don't want to do this again. But right now, you're going to have a glass of water, and then wait until the next time you get hungry, which might be in a few hours. It might be tomorrow.
So that's just a little bit of a reset right there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just wait until the next time you get hungry.
Try
again.
Take a glass of water. Wait till the next time.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. But the become is, I talk about this as if it's very simplistic. Well, just, eat when you're hungry, and then put two things together, a protein and a carb. But there's so many things that influence how we feel hunger and whether we're feeling hungry or not. So anxiety, feeling anxious, can be mistaken for hunger. And so in the burn section of the book, and even more in the become section of the book, it's, going through a sequence, and there is a chart, a very lovely chart in the book about when I reach for food, what is going on? The minute I'm reaching for food, ask myself, and this is kind of going backwards for those people who haven't done it before, why am I reaching for this food?
Yeah. I love how you explained how to kind of practice the intuitive eating towards the end of the burn, balance, and the become section, because that's the lifelong practice, is to kind of analyze what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And you break that down perfectly, I think.
Oh, thank you. Take a deep breath. Am I hungry? If I'm not sure, and I will just say, if you're not sure whether you're hungry or not, chances are 99% you're not. But what other things could be going on? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling, bored? I love the word bored, because I will say no one is bored. Absolutely. Yeah. No one is bored. But because there's always things that we can do, but we might feel restless, a little antsy, and that can feel very similar to hunger. And so it's working those things out. And then when you've already recognized your hunger, and you've already balanced the protein and the carb, and you know that you're physically full, but you still have these cravings, you still want to eat, the become section talks about all the emotions that might be solved by eating. And it works. That's why it gets repeated.
And she helps you come up with things to do instead.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Non-food soothers.
Yes.
Non-food soothers. I don't think I phrased it just that way, but I like that, Marysa.
That is. So what are some things, just really quickly, that people could do? So what are some of the non-food soothers that you guys recommend?
Well, if you are and this is discussed in the book too, it's always okay to take a break to eat, right? It's always okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to take a break to eat. It's not okay to take a break from a paper that you're writing to turn on Netflix.
Right, because you have to be writing this paper.
Right. But my point is, why isn't it okay? Why can't you use a non-food soother, a quick one, as a break? Like looking at Instagram, looking at a magazine that maybe you wait until everything is done. You know, if I'm vacuuming, and I use this example in the book, I might have to stop cleaning my house to eat when I'm really not hungry. I shouldn't say no one, but I think it's highly unlikely that in the middle of a task and you really want to break from it, that you're going to sit down and look at your phone and play a game.
Right.
I'm suggesting, why don't you do that if you're restless instead of eating when you're not hungry?
Finding different options that will kind of fill what we're trying to fill with food,
yes,
right?
Yes. Yes.
That 15
exactly.
to 20 minute gap where you would eat.
Yes.
Make a sandwich and scarf it down or whatever. Do something else.
Yes, because you had to eat. You needed a break.
Yeah.
Not a food break necessarily. That's a good.
But you might feel a lot better going for a little walk
Yeah.
or closing your eyes for a minute and taking a rest. I mean, there's so
Closing
many
your
things.
eyes for a
What? I
minute.
know.
That's
There
crazy.
are so many things that we can do that we would actually feel better after having done those.
Feeling more rejuvenated than having something that may make you feel worse if you binged on something.
Exactly. And isn't supporting your goals of trying to maintain a weight or losing weight.
Yeah, exactly. Huh. Okay. Should we jump into some questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think this part will be fun. We had a lot of, thank you so much everybody for submitting questions. Everybody has questions for dietitians apparently.
Yes,
you
a lot of people
that is
did.
awesome.
You had many, many questions. So we will start with a couple of things that we had on Facebook. Sharon, do you have one that you want to start with?
Yeah. Is there a healthy way to jumpstart weight loss in addition to near daily exercise?
Well, I think this plan is a healthy way, and hopefully, it's something that's long-term, maintainable and achievable, and it tastes good, and it allows for you to have your autonomy and eat regardless of your age or your gender or what kind of cuisine you like or where you live. So we're hoping that this can be really something that people can put into practice and help with weight loss if that's their goal.
Now, Marysa, really quickly, just a follow-up question. What would you say? So you mentioned weight loss and then also maintaining a healthy weight, that type of thing. Is there anything that you suggest, either of you suggest, if you are trying to lose weight versus maintaining a healthy weight? Does that make sense? Would you do anything differently, or is this enough to just be like, you're just going to see weight loss? I mean, that's all there is to it because of the way you are eating with this burn balance and becoming.
Well, I mean, for a lot of people, if they're consistently eating when they're not hungry, if they go back to eating only when they're hungry and learning to stop when they feel full and honoring those fullness cues, they are going to see weight loss because they're going to be eating less and listening to their hunger fullness cues.
And I like how that's very detailed in the book too. Like exactly when you feel like this and just a step above that is like, oh, this is when it gets good, bad, uncomfortable. I mean, they break it down very clearly.
Okay, next question. What are some good foods to lower your cholesterol?
So we were talking about this beforehand. We think foods that are rich in fiber, including fruits and vegetables, whole grains, those foods are shown to lower cholesterol.
Okay, easy.
Easy
I mean,
peasy.
and there's quite a few. There's a lot of fruits and vegetables, people. There's a lot of things you can choose from.
Exactly. There's a wide variety.
Choices for days.
Choices for days.
Okay. And then what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
That's a
So
hot
this
topic.
is a hot
right?
topic.
It's a
Yes. And there's a
very
lot of
hot
studies
topic.
coming out.
Yeah.
It's hard because a lot of these studies are very short-term studies.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of long-term studies on intermittent fasting. So it's really hard to say, but the short-term studies, a lot of them look really good and show good results. but it's hard to say because there's not those long-term studies.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it depends on how long it could be maintained. Yes, people see weight loss from it, but how long can you sustain that? Is it sustainable in your life?
That's why there are no long-term studies, because people can't do it long-term.
So if people don't know what intermittent fasting is, I think it's usually you stop eating after a certain time in the evening, and then you basically don't eat for 16 to 18 hours or something like that.
Yeah, it depends.
An open window in the day
there are several
that you
different
eat
ways
your
to do
food. So maybe you skip breakfast and only eat lunch and dinner or something.
Yeah, I think there's many iterations on that. So if you don't know what that is, but I think I would agree. I feel like intermittent fasting is yet another trend that has shown up on the scene, and it kind of goes in hand with a couple of other diets that have shown up on the scene as well. So I think,
I will say, like, as a personal anecdote, I've often thought about the intermittent fasting. If I'm truly eating for physical hunger, then I'm stopping after a certain time of night. And if I'm not eating breakfast until I'm hungry, I am not one of those people that likes to get up and eat. It takes me a little bit. I could maybe be classified as intermittently fasting because it does take me 16 to 18 hours until I eat. Not on purpose.
But that's just
depends on how you feel on an average day.
Yeah,
but then it's her choice, right? It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at the clock because I've got 3 more hours till 10 o'clock, right?
Exactly.
I had a husband and a wife come in together, and one of them followed our plan and was totally on board, and the other one's like, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to intermittent fast. So my experience watching the both of them, it was kind of funny because the intermittent faster didn't last very long on his plan. Yeah. Then one saw really good results and the other one fell off the wagon really quickly. And so, when people ask me if they should do it, I ask them, well, how long can you do it for? How long can you maintain that? And if it's not going to be maintainable long-term, then why put yourself through it?
Yeah.
I want to come back to a question that you had about, jump starting, and I'm going back to something that we said earlier in the podcast, and that is give it 24 hours. I can guarantee, I suggest to people and advocate that they try the 1-2 punch for 24 hours. Just 24 hours. And I promise you, 24 hours from right now, you will feel different.
I love that challenge.
I know. I was like, that's a pretty good guarantee there.
You will feel different. If you haven't always eaten when you're hungry and stopped and balanced your protein and carbohydrate and hydrated and slept well, give it 24 hours. Only eat when your body is physically asking for it. Balance that protein and carbohydrate, not too much, the fist and fist. You are going to feel so different 24 hours from now.
Claudia, I have a quick follow-up question to that.
Okay.
Follow-up to the follow-up. So you said, okay, fist, right? Okay. We got those.
Yep.
So you said something about stopping when you're full. Like, do you ever stop? If people are like, I am full after eating half an apple and my little cheese stick or whatever that you've used to balance it out, do you just say, okay, you're done and that's good? You tap out then?
Yes, you do tap out then. The fist is meant to be a guide. And I think I still love the idea of a fist and using your own fist because it's to your body size. In general, your fist is going to, when you have a fist of protein your size and a fist of carb, that's when you are going to feel full. But depending on other things that are happening in your life and in your body and whether you're working out or not, it might be after half of a fist of apple and a cheese stick.
But that also means that if you are working out quite a bit more than in an hour and you are hungry again, you can go ahead and fuel yourself again.
Yes. And we address that in the question section of the book. If you are working out really hard, and I'm actually speaking at a gym this Friday, if you're working out really hard and you do a fist of carb and a fist of protein and you're still hungry, then you need to do a fist of carb and a fist of protein again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Okay. Next question that I had from a listener. And this actually, I really wanted to hear this one. And I know you've talked about this, but I want to hear you tell me what your thoughts are. How should we teach our kids about the words calories and dieting? Because I have almost a 4-year-old daughter, and it terrifies me what is being said and culture and pop culture, what she sees on TV and that type of thing, it makes me super, super worried. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can teach our kids to handle those words.
Yeah. So at least at my house, I try to teach my kids that all foods fit, that all foods can be a part of a healthy diet, and we're balancing and we're using our plate and using our fists, but that there are no bad foods. And within that, I try not to talk about diets or weight or, any of those around my kids. Yeah. Because I think they're exposed to a lot of it. But my daughter's 5, and a couple months ago, she asked me, Mom, am I fat? Oh. And I about died. Yeah, it broke my heart. Like, where is she learning this? So I think it is some educating that of course she's not, and that we all have different bodies, and, people need to feel themselves differently. But I think teaching your kids to honor hunger and fullness, and then exposing them to a wide variety of foods without really teaching, these are good or bad. They're all good.
They're all good.
Yeah.
I like when we talked about on your previous episode, you talked about exposing your kids to many foods multiple times so that they have a chance to try them out. So I just want to reiterate that. Claudia.
I think that a conversation that isn't happening enough is teaching children that they can trust their body.
Yeah.
So, there's all this information about diets and calories and things like that. And there's another listener, because you sent us some of the questions, had a question on what do you think about the nutrition education in our society for children today? And I really I strongly don't think that there is a conversation about hunger awareness.
Yeah.
There is a conversation about what is leading to our obesity epidemic. There is a conversation about the food industry. There is a conversation about excess sugar. There is a conversation about diets and calories and nutrition education. But there is not a loud enough conversation. Conversations are happening, but there's not a loud, global enough conversation about you have a mechanism in your body to tell you when you need fuel. There's not a loud enough conversation to say you can actually trust it. It's hard. We need to teach children the difference between the sensation of hunger and the sensation of other emotions. But that is what I've taught my children, which is not the national conversation.
Yeah.
But I think kids are born intuitively eating.
Yes.
And they learn their way out of that. If we make them clean their plates, or, I think we're all born intuitive
food that they don't want to eat, things like that.
So, like I said, I want my kids to eat a wide variety, and I do encourage them to try those foods, but I try really not to force them or make them, because I do want them to listen to their hunger, fullness cues, and all foods are equal. It's amazing when I offer a cookie to my daughter and she's like, no thanks. Like, whose kid are you? So when all foods are equal, foods aren't put on a pedestal, and it's not like, oh, that cookie is special. It's just the same as any other food.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome thing to learn and to keep.
Yeah, hopefully they can keep that as they grow older.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's navigating those waters makes me super nervous.
Okay. This question from a listener is, which organs take the brunt of poor eating decisions?
We laughed about this one a little bit beforehand, because every organ,
your skin stretches. I don't know.
Your liver has to process all of those. I think your digestive tract,
that's what I thought of.
Yeah.
Well, your GI tract, your colon takes a beating from poor choices. And I'm just going to put it out there. You might not be pooping, and pooping makes people happy.
Pooping does make people happy.
Yeah.
Everyone poops. You need it.
But our bodies really are amazing with how much they can take.
They can take a beating.
Yeah,
they can take your poor nutrition decisions.
It does feel better when, you are making choices of foods that make you feel good.
Okay. So this one was really funny. I think we've touched on a little bit of this. one of our listeners, Chad, said, fad trendy diets set aside, why does it seem that most professional nutrition advice is stuck in the 80s? Fake sugars and low fat versus high fat and naturally low carb foods. I mean, it just seems like, it does feel like all this stuff is a little antiquated when it comes to the nutrition information that is out there. So have any thoughts on that, or listen to it, not listen to it?
I think our industry, just like any medical industry, takes a long time to come up with new standards because they wait for a lot of studies and a lot of years of research and consensus before they come out. They just came out with new recommendations that, like, it's ridiculous. They should have come out with 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it does take them a little longer to come out with these things, just like it takes for the medical profession, as we all know.
To come out with the studies, to come out with the data to back up.
But that's because we use scientifically backed research.
Right.
We don't just jump on the latest bandwagon. As dietitians, we use scientifically backed research, and that's important. And sometimes that might mean that our organizations take a little longer to come out with things. But overall, that means when we do, it has a lot of research backing it.
I would agree. I think so Marysa mentioned consensus. It takes a long time to reach that consensus and have all the researchers from all different parts of the country, from all different kinds of universities and all different kinds of or private sector jobs to be on a committee and reach consensus. It just takes time. And so by the time they decide, those studies might be already 5 years old.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say that a lot of those studies actually will affect policy, right?
Yes.
So that, of course, that takes time.
There's politics involved, for sure.
There's politics involved. And so they need all the data and science to back it up.
Well, and it's not just for one specific group of people or one person, we want to make sure that when we give advice that it's good for the vast majority of Americans.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, do you have any recommendations for PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or insulin resistance, like meal plans or diet plans for people that suffer with those conditions, or low nickel diets, things like that? That's what one of our listeners has heard is a good option for them.
So I'm going to address the PCOS. There is a book. I'm sorry, I can't remember what it's called. It might be called The PCOS Diet. PCOS, similar to type 2 diabetes, so people with PCOS, similar to people with diabetes, need to control, if you will, or reduce their carbohydrate. So their overall carbohydrate. And the way in which the carbohydrate enters their system and bloodstream. So the 1-2 punch works very well for that because you're responding to your hunger. You're still eating when your stomach actually will burn the food, but then you are basically portion controlling the carbohydrate, combining it with a protein, controlling how it enters the bloodstream. And so it works very well. And we've had a lot of success with using the 1-2 punch book with people with PCOS as well as type 2 diabetes.
So even though 1-2 punch still has a carb and a protein, these people who have insulin resistance can still eat those carbs?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because you're balancing it out, and it's like you said, entering the bloodstream a little bit. It's not just dumping in basically all of that sugar into your bloodstream.
It's not dumping and it's not spiking. So we're controlling the amount because you're only going to have the size of your fist. So we're controlling the amount. But think of the protein as weighing down the carbohydrate as it enters the bloodstream. Yeah. It serves as an anchor.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to really quickly hit some diets because people actually had a lot of questions about specific types of diets. Okay, so first of all, the blood type diet. Have you guys heard of that before?
Mm-hmm.
And tell us what you think about that.
Marysa looks like she might laugh.
Not a lot of research backing that diet.
Okay.
I do think we're all built differently and certain foods affect us differently. So where one person might feel a lot better on maybe a lower carbohydrate diet, or where they're, you know, they might respond differently. And so I think that's more genetics and epigenetics. And they are finding that your epigenetics really can affect your, I guess you're getting the right kinds of foods can really work well with your epigenetics for your long-term health.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's more like I'm supporting epigenetics and nutrigenomics rather than a blood type. I think the blood type is really broad.
Okay. What about an alkaline diet?
So if you're eating a half a plate of veggies with every meal and you're balancing your carbohydrates and your protein, that is an alkaline diet.
Oh,
vegetables are alkalizing.
And your body also is
right. We have our blood.
Your body tries to maintain almost a perfect pH balance, regardless of
what you put into
how
it.
much, acid or alkali you're putting in.
It's true. So we have a very complex system that maintains a very narrow pH, and it does that regardless of what we're eating. But can we make it easier for that acid base by choosing foods that are more alkaline? Sure.
I was going to ask, there was another question about the keto diet. That is very, once again, trendy.
We talked about that last time, didn't we?
We did a little bit. So we'll address it here.
People still want to know.
Yeah, people still want to know. So what do you think about that?
So once again, are you going to do it long term? And if you swing the pendulum one way, what happens when people fall off the keto wagon? Usually there's this diet rebound that happens. And so we want to encourage people to do something that's long-term maintainable, that they can enjoy and be healthy long-term.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do have several friends that are doing the keto diet and they have great results because, it's very, lots of protein, veggies, high fat, that type of thing. There's no carbohydrates, if I'm not mistaken.
Moderate protein.
Yeah. Is it moderate protein?
Moderate protein, very high in fat.
Very high in fat. And so...
And almost no carbs.
And almost no carbs. It's very restrictive. And it's tricky when you have... food is food, right? But there are things that people gather around food for.
Yes.
Celebrations.
Yes.
It's really tough to... they're like, I can't join in the whatever you guys are eating for this person's birthday. And so that I know is tricky for them and hard and difficult at times for those folks that are trying to do the keto diet. So
keto is not hygge friendly.
You can listen to our hygge episode too.
Going back to the keto, there isn't a lot of long-term studies. So sure, there's a lot of short-term studies showing that keto is very effective. Is it effective to lose weight? Yes. But there are no long-term studies. And why is that? Because people can't stay on it long term. Most people can't.
Okay, next question.
Do you trust a vitamin manufacturer? And if yes, which one? They're not regulated.
They are not regulated. Speaking from experience.
I worked for a supplement manufacturer for many years. I think there are a lot of industry organizations that test and verify good manufacturers. So I think by making sure that things are verified, looking for those seals of those organizations.
What organizations?
For example, like NSF will go through and certify. There's depending, if you're looking for sports, you could make sure that they don't have any banned substances, and different organizations will certify for that. I think making sure that you're getting supplements from reputable companies.
Yes.
And ones that don't make these wild promises. If they make these wild, crazy promises, it's probably not a reputable company, and so I think it helps to do your homework whenever you're making any kind of purchase, from a kitchen tool to a supplement. Do your homework and make an informed choice.
I rely on Consumer Labs, which does independent testing of all supplements, including vitamins, minerals, and multivitamins and minerals. And so you can get the background information if you become a Consumer Labs member, but there's also information available to the public.
That's awesome. Those are awesome. 2 great tips.
Okay, we are going to ask one last question, and I hope you guys, I'm sure you have great experiences. So what is your experience working with clients that has taught you about the impact you're making on your client's life? Can you share an experience of how your job as a dietitian, or what you've seen with the 1-2 punch, how you've seen somebody's life affected in a positive way? I'd just like to hear that.
So I think of a person that I've not seen since. Our job essentially, and it's not necessarily a really good business model, but our job as dietitians is to become disposable. I mean, you should not need us. We need to give you the tools for you to do it yourself. And so very often we see clients for a period of time and then we never see them again. And that's because they're on their way.
And they've figured it out they've
figured it out. But I had a client a few years ago when I was just developing the book and I had described the concept to her and her husband. She was in her 50s, nearing 60, and had never heard of some of these concepts before. She tried intuitive eating and it was too loose, like I said, for her. And she came back in for one final visit and cried and cried and cried and said, "You have changed my life." And it's not really me that has changed her life. The concept of trusting her body, the concept of only eating when she's hungry, the concept of balancing the protein and carb, to stabilize her blood sugar, the concept of giving her permission so that she could really focus on her life. Part of the tears, and she said this, were gratefulness. Part of the tears were, if I had only had this in other
kind of
aspects of my
earlier.
life. Yeah.
Bittersweet.
Bittersweet, but so meaningful.
That's great. How about you, Marysa?
Like similar experiences. I think when people come in, there is a lot of tears. They're frustrated. I mean, eating is something that we have to do several times a day for our whole lives.
Yeah.
And if you're terrified of food or terrified of your body and trusting your body, it can be a really scary thing. And so when people learn to trust their body and listen to their body and eat foods that make them feel good, it's a game changer. It makes them feel so much better. And they come in and they tell us how wonderful they feel. And it's a good feeling.
Yes.
I think it would be super rewarding to see that because people want to have goals. They want to look good. They want to feel good, and to be able to see that and not see them again in a sense of they are able to graduate from what they've learned and they go on and know how to live their lives. I think that's impressive. I just want to thank you guys for being on the interview, having this interview and answering all the questions that we had come through. We kind of lumped a few questions in, so I apologize if I didn't get to your question today. We'll probably have you guys on at some other time, so save up your questions.
I do want to apologize too. There are so many questions. Nutrition is so broad, and hopefully we will have the opportunity to answer your questions and clear up some of this confusion for you.
Yes. For sure.
We would love it. Okay, so before we move on to the next segment, tell me where we can find the book, first of all.
The book is available on Amazon if you'd like. It's available Prime. Type in 1-2 Punch by Claudia Wilson and it will come up with a description and some reviews of people who have loved it. And also on our website, which is allofnutrition.com, or you can type in 12punchbook.com. and it's available there as well.
Perfect. That is awesome. We are excited. We highly encourage you to check it out. And where can we find you in other places? I'm assuming All of Nutrition. I follow you guys on Instagram. So All of Nutrition on Instagram, All of Nutrition on Facebook, if I'm not mistaken, both of those.
Twitter and Pinterest, same thing, All of Nutrition. If you purchase the book and would like more personal information about how to put it into practice into your life, you can come see us at All of Nutrition. We have offices in Salt Lake. You can also, if you have something that you need help with that's unrelated to the book and you need to see a dietitian, you can see Marysa at All of Nutrition. We would love to help you.
That is great. Okay, so we will, like I said, we'll have those links in the show notes, and we'll have links in the show notes so you guys can find everything there. Okay, you guys, and I'm really excited because those guys are offering a giveaway, and it's not just a simple giveaway with just the book. I mean, the book's awesome in itself.
It's a 1-2 punch giveaway.
Yeah. They don't mess around, man. So head on over to our Instagram at Hungry Squared, and you can also head on over to their Olive Nutrition Instagram page too, because then they'll have the information about how to enter. It'll be really simple. Hang out there on Instagram. It'll just be a follow and make a comment, because we want your input on something about this whole 1-2 punch idea. So head over there and you will win actually basically a gift basket with a cookbook and a few other goodies, I would say. So
with the 1-2 punch book.
Yes, exactly. So thank you so much for that giveaway. We're super excited for our listeners. And once again, check out the book if you can on Amazon or at Olive Nutrition, or you can also do 12punchbook.com and you can find the book there. So I feel really super inspired. So thank you. That super, super inspired. I learned a lot and I have a few things to work on, I think.
I'm excited.
Yay. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Introducing interesting ingredients.
Do.
Okay. So once again, those guys are still here, you guys. I mean, they were here a second ago, but now they're here.
But we're still here.
Yeah. And we actually wanted to ask Claudia if you wouldn't mind talking about an interesting ingredient that shows up a lot in your realm as a dietitian.
So I'm going to talk about quinoa, and that's how you say it. Quinoa is sometimes confused by some people as a protein because it actually does, true fact, it does include all of the essential amino acids to make a complete protein. So it includes all those amino acids to make a complete protein, but that does not mean that it's high in protein, nor does it mean that it should be counted as a protein. It is still a grain and it's still mostly carbohydrate. I know that's super confusing. The fact that it
interesting.
Yes, the fact that it has all 8 of those amino acids, 8 to 9 amino acids to make complete protein, it's complete, but it doesn't mean that it's high in protein.
Yeah, I feel like that all those people that report that quinoa is super awesome are lying to us.
So it's not necessarily a protein bowl if it's only veggies and quinoa.
Exactly.
It's
a carbohydrate bowl. Yes, it has some protein. Yes, it absolutely has some protein, but it's not super high in protein and maybe shouldn't be considered a protein bowl. Quinoa has some awesome benefits. It's high in fiber. It has lots of vitamins and minerals, and it does actually have those 8 to 9, essential amino acids, but it is not high in protein. It is much higher in carbohydrate.
This is surprising to me.
So if we're talking about 1-2 punch, would we classify this as a combo food? How you talk about in the book, there's certain combo foods, and that kind of gets into the weeds a little bit.
It is weedy.
If you want to simplify it though, would you simplify it as a carb or a protein?
Carb.
Okay.
Let's just keep
Easy
it
as
simple.
that. Okay.
It's on the carb list.
Okay.
Do you like it?
I like it, but
Okay.
my adult children will tell you that I like lots of things that are really disgusting and gross. I don't think that's true, but they do.
Because I've had quinoa a little bit, but I really just like rice. So I think I
love rice too.
It's the Asian in you.
I think it is the Asian thing. Come on, Marysa. I just like
We love our rice.
We love our rice. Just basically a fistful would be just fine with that.
Yes.
Okay.
With a protein.
Yes.
Okay.
How do you like to prepare it? I'm curious.
I like to brown it when it's dry. So I like to toast it. It gives it a little nutty flavor.
Whoa.
Yeah, I brown it when it's dry, and then I cook it, and so it just has a little bit more flavor. When I don't do that, it's a little lacking in flavor, even if you salt it. And so
I cook mine in really high quality broth. And I think the broth that it soaks up can really affect the flavor.
The flavor on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a little toasting action. I really like that because anything that brings out nutty flavor, but then the broth. Okay. High quality broth. I'm going to make
Or
a
a good
note of that.
tasting broth.
Good tasting broth. Okay. Quinoa, everybody. I'll put a link in the show notes if you're like, how did they spell that? What is that? Grain? But that is our interesting ingredient. That is I didn't know that it was not a protein, like a high protein thing. I've been fooled.
Thanks for joining us today for our show. You can find us at hungrysquared.com, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and Spotify.
Hey, you guys, once again, we want to thank Claudia and Marysa for coming on today from All of Nutrition and the 1-2 Punch Book. I want to say head over to Instagram because we are having our giveaway. So at Hungry Squared is our Instagram page, and then at All of Nutrition also. We have had such a great time today. It's been a hoot and so interesting and educational. Once again, thank you for being on the podcast. And to all of you guys, join us next week for our next episode of Food Nerdery.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Bye.
Hungry Squared, yeah, hungry.